There is one fuel injector trick that adds 50,000 miles to any engine. Honda, Toyota, BMW, truck, diesel, doesn't matter. This works on all of them. And mechanics have been charging you $250 to do something that takes 5 minutes and costs 14 bucks at the gas pump. They grab a bottle off the shelf, pour it in your tank, hand you the bill. That's the service. But here's what no mechanic will ever tell you. That fuel injector trick only works if you combine it with the 6 foundational tricks that actually keep injectors alive. I've been wrenching on cars for 15 years, spent probably $3,000 figuring out all 6 of these the hard way, tested them on my own cars, got the receipts, got the fuel economy numbers. And trick number 3 is going to make every GDI owner furious, because it proves the maintenance you're already doing is completely useless for half your engine. Nobody mentions this. Not your dealer, not your mechanic, not the bottle. Real quick before we start, if this saves you even one trip to the shop, tap that like button. Helps other people find this. Subscribe if you want more videos that keep mechanics honest. We post every week. Here's something you can do every single time you drive. Trick number 6, thermal management and driving habits. This one costs $0. Ever heard of Italian tune-up? Spirited driving clears deposits through heat. Sounds like folklore. But there's truth. When you run higher RPM under load, combustion temperatures go up. Those elevated temps oxidize lighter carbon deposits and burn off residues before they get a chance to harden. It won't remove heavy baked on carbon though. Thick GDI valve deposits? Driving hard won't fix that. Seriously clogged injectors? High RPM won't clear them out. This is a prevention strategy, not a cure. I've got a Civic that I use for short commutes. It's about 8 miles each way, so the engine barely warms up. After 6 months of that routine, the throttle started feeling sluggish and the idle got a little rough. So I took it for a 2-hour highway drive. I kept it in 4th gear at about 4,000 revolutions per minute for long stretches just to let the engine work. After that drive, the sluggishness was completely gone and the throttle response felt much sharper. Here's how to do it right. Make sure your engine is fully warmed first. Don't rev it cold because that's just wear and tear. Wait until your coolant temp is normal. Get on a highway or an empty road and accelerate in a higher gear under load, not low gear bouncing off redline. You want sustained load for about 15 to 30 minutes, not an hour. If you have an automatic transmission, put it in sport mode or manual mode to keep it from upshifting too soon. For turbo cars, you have to be careful. Going full throttle in low gears makes excessive boost. It's better to use moderate throttle in higher gears. And after any hard driving, always let the engine idle for 30 to 60 seconds before shutting it down. That brief idle is crucial for heat soak management. If you shut the engine off immediately after hard driving, the coolant and oil stop flowing. All that heat soaks into the components. It can vaporize the fuel sitting in the injector tips, leaving waxy deposits behind. It also cooks the oil sitting in your turbo bearings. Letting it idle keeps everything circulating and cooling down evenly. Performance guys already know this. After track days, they do cool down laps and let the cars idle in the pits before shutdown. You want to apply the same principle after any spirited street driving. For diesels, sustained high load is absolutely critical. Diesel particulate filters need high exhaust temperatures to regenerate properly. If you only do short trips, the DPF never gets hot enough and soot just accumulates. That means diesel owners need regular highway runs. It's not optional. Short trips are terrible for engines in general. The engine never fully warms up and deposits never get a chance to burn off. If your lifestyle is all short trips, you need to compensate with more aggressive cleaning and earlier maintenance. I'll cover exactly what products to use in trick number 4. But the simplest thing you can do right now is combine your errands. One 30-minute trip is way better than 3 10-minute trips. Fewer cold starts and more time at operating temperature. That's trick number 6. Occasional spirited driving under load. Manage your heat soak after. Combine trips to minimize cold starts. And if you're a diesel owner, highway runs are mandatory. Trick number 5. Post-cleaning maintenance protocol. This one bit me hard. A few years back, I did an aggressive cleaning on my Accord. I ran 3 bottles of Techron over 3 tanks of gas. The car ran perfectly right after. It had a smooth idle and better throttle response. I thought the job was done. But 500 miles later, it started running rough again. I was confused because I knew the cleaning had worked. Why was it suddenly acting up? It was the fuel filter. All those dissolved deposits had clogged it up. The chemical cleaning mobilized years of crud from the tank and lines, and the filter did its job and caught it. But now the filter was packed tight. Fuel flow was restricted, which gave me the exact same symptoms as bad injectors. I replaced the fuel filter for 35 bucks, and it fixed the problem immediately. After any deep chemical cleaning, you need a follow-up protocol. Replacing the fuel filter within 500 miles is not optional. The cleaners break up deposits, that debris gets captured by the filter, and it eventually clogs it. Your spark plugs need attention too. Heavy cleaning solvents and mobilized carbon can foul your electrodes. Inspect your plugs within 1,000 miles. If they're black and sooty, replace them. If they're due for a change anyway, definitely replace them. Fresh plugs combined with clean injectors equals optimal combustion. Engine oil can also get contaminated. Strong solvents and dissolved deposits can pass the piston rings and get into the crankcase. After a really aggressive fuel treatment, you should change your oil within 1,000 miles. And if you used seafoam directly in the crankcase to dissolve sludge, change that oil immediately, not next week. You just dissolved a bunch of engine sludge, so get it out before it circulates through your bearings. If you opt for professional injector cleaning where the injectors are physically removed for ultrasonic baths, you must replace all the O-rings and seals. Never reuse old ones. Just disturbing them ruins their sealing ability. If you reuse them, you'll get fuel leaks, which is a massive fire risk. Plus, a bad seal lets unmetered air in, causing a lean condition. After reinstall, check for leaks. Start the engine and look at each injector and rail connection. Any wetness at all, shut it down and fix it. And insist on flow testing, before and after. That proves the service actually worked. If a shop won't show you flow test results, find a different shop. You're paying hundreds of dollars. You deserve proof. After walnut blasting, replace the spark plugs while everything is apart. And always do an oil change within 500 miles to capture any residual media that might have snuck past the valves. Trick number 4. Strategic chemical cleaning with PEA. Walk into any auto parts store and you'll see why I'm frustrated. There are dozens of fuel injector cleaners on the market, bright bottles with big claims. But 90% of them are complete trash. I've tested probably 15 different products over the years, and most of them do absolutely nothing. There is really only one ingredient that works: polyethyramine, also known as PEA. It is the only chemical that reliably dissolves baked on carbon. Everything else is just an expensive bottle of nothing. You see, the deposits on your injectors aren't just dirt, they're hard, baked on carbon. When fuel evaporates in the hot tips of the injectors after you shut the engine off, it leaves a waxy residue. Engine heat then cooks that residue into hard carbon that regular gasoline won't touch, but PEA actually breaks those molecular bonds and strips it clean. The problem is that companies don't advertise how much PEA is in their product. You actually have to check their material safety data sheets to find out. Here are the products that actually work. Redline SI1 is super concentrated and loaded with PEA. Amsoil PI is the exact same deal. And Chevron Techron. Techron is what I use for regular maintenance. It's been around forever and it's officially endorsed by OEMs. Ford even specified it in a technical service bulletin for fuel pump issues and Explorers. When an automaker puts a specific brand in an official bulletin, you know it's legit. BG44K is another good one. It's professional grade and expensive, but technicians swear by it for heavy cleaning. What should you avoid? Seafoam is great for intake cleaning and crankcase sludge, but for injector deposits, it's not your best bet. Brands like Lucas, Gumout, Royal Purple, and Liqui Moly all make multiple products. Some are PEA based, some aren't. You have to check the specific bottle you're buying. Here's how to use it right. Wait until your tank is nearly empty, about a quarter tank. Add the bottle, then immediately fill up completely. It needs to mix with fresh fuel. If you add it to a full tank, it won't mix well. If you add it to an empty tank and don't refuel, you're running concentrated cleaner through the system, and that can cause rough running. You want an empty tank? Add the cleaner, and then immediately refuel. That creates the perfect dilution. When my Civic hit 85,000 miles, it developed a slight hesitation. I used Techron exactly this way. On the first tank, I noticed nothing obvious. By the second tank, the throttle felt much crisper. And by the third tank, the hesitation was completely gone, and my fuel economy went up by 1 miles per gallon. You have to give it time because it works gradually. So how often should you do this? If you're using top-tier fuel, run a bottle every 5,000 to 7,000 miles to line up with your oil changes. If you're not using top-tier fuel, bump that up to every 2,000 to 3,000 miles. And if your lifestyle is mostly short trips, you need to do it even more often. And never mix products. Don't pour Techron, Lucas, and Seafoam into the tank all at the same time. Different chemical formulas can interact weirdly. Just pick one good product and stick with it. Keep your expectations realistic though. Additives are preventive. They maintain clean injectors. But if yours are severely clogged from years of neglect, you might need professional ultrasonic cleaning. My rule is simple. 3 to 4 tanks of quality PEA cleaner and symptoms haven't improved. Time for professional help. Trick number 3. Direct injection specific maintenance. If you drive GDI, this one's going to make you mad. Everything I just said about fuel additives, If you own GDI, half of that doesn't apply to your intake valves. Nobody tells you this. My brother has a 2013 VW GTI. At 75,000 miles, it started running really rough. He had a major loss of power and random misfires. The crazy thing is, he had been using Techron religiously. He changed his oil on time. He did everything right. He finally takes it to a VW specialist, and they pull the intake manifold. His valves were completely coated in black tar and thick, crusty carbon. It cost him $650 for walnut shell blasting. He asked the mechanic why his additives didn't prevent this. The tech explained that fuel additives travel with the fuel. In a direct injection engine, the fuel sprays directly into the cylinder. It never touches the intake valves. Because the additives can't physically reach the valve deposits, they only keep the injectors clean. The valves are entirely on their own. This is huge. If you own GDI and think additives keep valves clean, you've been misled. Certain engines are notorious for this flaw. The VW EA888, BMW N54 and N55, and a lot of Hyundai Kia 4-cylinder GDI engines. If you own any of these, plan for mechanical valve cleaning between 50,000 and 75,000 miles. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Other engines handle it much better. The Mazda Skyactiv G series, some modern Subarus, and any dual injection system from Toyota. They have way fewer carbon problems. When you do need it done, walnut shell blasting is the gold standard. They remove the intake manifold and use crushed walnut shells with compressed air to blast the carbon off the valves. The shells are hard enough to remove carbon, but soft enough not to damage the metal. It takes several hours and usually costs between $300 to $800. Dry ice blasting works incredibly well too. The dry ice sublimates on impact, so there's no media left to vacuum out. But fewer shops have the specialized equipment, so it might cost more. This service isn't optional for GDI engines. If you wait too long, the carbon gets so thick that airflow is restricted. Your combustion suffers, which creates more soot in the cylinder. That soot then clogs your injectors, and now you have two expensive problems instead of one. Here's the smart move. When you're having the valves cleaned, get the injectors cleaned at the exact same time. The manifold is already off and the injectors are right there exposed. My brother learned. After valve cleaning, I pushed him to flow test injectors. 2 flowing 15% low. Had them ultrasonically cleaned. Extra $200. Both sides clean. Combustion optimal. Valves stay clean way longer. Now here's something most people miss. The biggest source of that valve carbon is oil vapor from your PCV system. Your engine routes crankcase pressure back into the intake, and it carries oil vapor with it. In port injection, fuel washes that vapor away. In direct injection, it bakes right onto the valves. And the quality of your oil determines how much vapor you're producing. Fresh, clean oil makes very little. Degraded oil produces way more. A VW tech told me that on EA888 engines, extending oil changes past 5,000 miles dramatically increases valve carbon. So if you own GDI, don't extend your oil changes. Use quality full synthetic with low volatility. Modern specs like API SN Plus or ILSACGF6 were developed partly for this. And this is where catch cans come in. A catch can goes between your PCV and intake. Catches oil vapor before it ever hits the valves. My brother installed one after his cleaning. Every 3,000 miles, he drains it and collects dark, nasty oil. That stuff that would have been baking onto his valves. He's at 95,000 now with no symptoms. Catch cans aren't perfect though. They catch heavy droplets, but lighter volatile fractions still get through. They add maintenance because you have to drain them regularly. And some dealers consider them aftermarket modifications for warranty purposes. But for known problem engines, lots of owners run them and report significantly cleaner valves at their next service. If you get one, get quality. Designs with baffles and coalescence media work way better than empty cans. Should you invest? If your engine is notorious for valve carbon and you're keeping it long term, probably worth it. 100 to 300 up front. Could extend time between cleanings from 60,000 to 120,000 miles. That's a $400 to $800 service you're doing. Resist an engine or not keeping past 100,000. Maybe skip it. Shopping for a car? Look for dual injection, both port and direct, way less buildup. Trick number 2. Diagnostic first approach. This almost saved my neighbor $1,200. One day he knocked on my door because his Camry was running rough and the check engine light was on. 2 different mechanics had both told him he needed new fuel injectors. The first shop quoted him $1,200. The second shop quoted $1,500. He asked if I could take a quick look at it. I plugged in my scanner and pulled a P0171 code. That means the system is running too lean. Everyone sees a lean code and immediately assumes it's the injectors. But that code doesn't mean bad injectors. It just means there is either too much air or not enough fuel. It could literally be a dozen different things. I checked his fuel pressure and it was completely normal. I asked about his fuel filter and he had just replaced it. Then I popped off the intake tube and looked at his mass airflow sensor. It was completely caked with oil and dirt. Disgusting. I grabbed a $6 can of MAF cleaner from AutoZone, sprayed it down, let it dry, and reinstalled it. We started the car and it ran perfectly. I cleared the code and it never came back. He almost dropped $1,200 on injectors he didn't even need because nobody bothered to diagnose the actual problem. A rough idle could be 20 different things. Hesitation could be related to fuel, ignition, the transmission, or even bad motor mounts. Symptoms lie to you, so you have to verify them. And you don't need expensive tools to do this. Simple tests can eliminate all the guesswork. First, scan for codes yourself. You can buy a $20 scanner from Amazon, or just go to AutoZone where they do it for free. Look for misfire codes, injector circuit codes, and fuel trim codes. A P0300 means random misfires. P0301 through P0308 point to specific cylinder misfires. P0201 through P0208 are injector circuit codes, which usually indicate an electrical problem, not a mechanical clog. And P0171 or P0174 indicate lean conditions, which could be injectors, but could also be a massive vacuum leak. Next, check your fuel pressure. Get a $30 gauge and hook it to your fuel rail test port. Turn the key on. It should read between 40 and 60 psi for most modern cars. If you have low pressure, that's not your injectors. That's a failing pump or regulator. Replace the fuel filter if you don't know its history. Clean your sensors. MAF sensor gets dirty. Throttle body accumulates carbon. $5 can of cleaner fixes what looks like injector problems. Check for vacuum leaks because they are a huge culprit. A vacuum leak causes lean codes and a rough idle that feels exactly like bad injectors. With the engine running, listen for hissing around the intake manifold. You can also spray a little starter fluid around the vacuum lines and intake gaskets. If the RPM suddenly jumps, you've found your leak. That's unmetered air entering the engine, making the computer see a lean condition and falsely blame the injectors. The starting fluid test is another great trick. Spray some into the intake while a friend cranks the engine. If it fires up on the fluid but dies as soon as it's gone, you've just proved your ignition system works perfectly. Your problem is definitely fuel delivery. It could be the pump, the filter, or the injectors, but at least you've narrowed it down. You can also listen to your injectors with a long screwdriver or an automotive stethoscope. Touch the metal tip to each injector while the engine is running. You should hear a distinct, sharp clicking sound. If there's no clicking, you have a dead electrical circuit, not a clogged mechanical valve. Then there's the swap test, which is my personal favorite. I had a car with a P0303 code, meaning a cylinder 3 misfire. I swapped the fuel injectors between cylinder 3 and cylinder 5, cleared the codes, and ran it again. The misfire stayed at cylinder 3. That proved it wasn't the injector at all. It turned out to be a bad ignition coil. A $45 part and 10 minutes of work fixed it. If the problem follows the part's bad. If it stays with the cylinder issue. Go through that sequence and you'll know what's actually wrong, not guessing. Working from evidence. Cost me $6 to save my neighbor $1,200. That's trick number 2. Diagnose first. Never assume. And now trick number 1, the big one. Fuel quality and contamination control. Sounds too simple to matter, but it saved my Civic. I used to fuel up wherever was cheap. Random gas station. Lowest price. Figured gas is gas. Wrong. My 2012 Civic hit about 60,000 miles and started running like garbage. Rough idle. Hesitation when I stopped it. Fuel economy tanked from 32 down to 28. I took it to my mechanic and he scanned it. He pulled a lean code and told me my injectors were clogged. He wanted $800 to clean them. I said no thanks and went home to do some research. That's when I found out about top-tier fuel. This isn't marketing. Automakers like Honda, Toyota, BMW got together with fuel companies and said the legal minimum for detergents isn't good enough. Modern engines need more. Top-tier fuel has 5 to 10 times more detergent than the bare minimum. That detergent dissolves deposits before they turn into hard carbon that chokes your injectors. I switched to Shell. That's it. Within 2,000 miles, rough idle smoothed out. By 5,000 miles, fuel economy back up to 31. Never touched the injectors, never used expensive cleaners, just better gas. Cost difference? Maybe 5 to 10 cents more per gallon. That's $80 a year. Compare that to the $800 quote I dodged. Which brands are top tier? Costco, Shell, Chevron, Mobil, Exxon, BP. About 50 brands total. Search top tier gas stations for the full list. But gas quality is only half of trick number 1. The other half is your fuel filter. I guarantee most people watching have no clue when theirs was last changed. The fuel filter sits between your tank and your injectors. It catches dirt, rust, and water. When it clogs, you get the exact same symptoms as bad injectors: a rough idle, hesitation, and serious power loss. My wife's 2008 Accord had 110,000 miles on it and started running rough. The fuel filter had never been changed, not once. I swapped it out myself in about 20 minutes. The part cost $25, and it fixed the problem completely. Most cars need a new fuel filter every 60,000 miles. The part usually costs between 20 to 40 bucks. Yet people will spend hundreds of dollars on premium injector cleaners when all they really needed was a fresh filter. If you just bought a used car, replace the fuel filter immediately. You have absolutely no idea what the previous owner ran through that tank. One more important detail: stop running your gas tank down to empty. All the sediment and rust in your gas tank naturally settles at the bottom. When you run low, your fuel pump sucks from the dirtiest possible part of the tank. All that junk heads straight for your filter and your injectors. Plus, fuel pumps actually use the fuel surrounding them for cooling. If you run low repeatedly, the pump runs hot. When it eventually dies, it's a $500 to $800 repair because on most modern cars, the pump is located inside the gas tank. Keep your tank above a quarter full. Costs nothing. Saves everything. Quick note for the diesel owners out there: everything I just said, multiply it by 10. Diesel injectors work at extreme pressures, usually between 20,000 to 30,000 pounds per square inch. Even microscopic dirt will destroy them. Diesel also has unique problems like water separation and microbial growth. You need to drain your water separator monthly and use diesel-specific additives for lubricity. My buddy ignored this on his 2015 Ram. After 2 years of never draining the separator, he suffered catastrophic injector failure and high-pressure pump failure. It was a $4,500 repair. The cost to prevent it? 5 minutes a month and maybe $50 a year on additives. The old Ford Crown Vics prove how important the basics are. A buddy of mine drives one with 210,000 miles on the original injectors. He's never cleaned them once. He just changes the fuel filter every 60,000 miles like clockwork, and it runs like a tank. Even the most robust, reliable injectors in the world need the basics: clean fuel, a fresh filter, and keeping the tank above empty. That's trick number 1. Top-tier fuel. Fresh fuel filter. Keep the tank above a quarter. Annual cost may be $100 to $150. Prevents 90% of injector problems. Let me bring it all together. 6 tricks working as a system. Driving habits that control temperature and prevent deposits from hardening. Post-cleaning protocols that protect the work you've already done. Chemical cleaning with the right ingredient to maintain injector health. GDI valve service to address the one thing additives can't reach. Proper diagnostics to make sure you're solving the right problem before spending money. And fuel quality to prevent contamination from ever reaching your injectors in the first place. So, what should you do today? First, switch to top-tier fuel if you haven't already. Second, check your fuel filter history and replace it if unknown. Third, pick a quality PEA cleaner and start a regular schedule. Fourth, if you own GDI, plan your valve cleaning before symptoms show up and use quality synthetic oil. Fifth, learn the basic diagnostic tests so you never pay for repairs you don't need. And sixth, take your car on a highway run every now and then. Let the engine breathe. Let's look at the prevention cost. Top-tier fuel might run you $100 extra a year. Additives are $50 to $100. Quality oil is another $50. A catch can is $100 to $300 just one time. So you're looking at a few $100 a year total. Now, look at the neglect cost. An injector replacement is $800 to $2,000. Valve cleaning is $400 to $800. A dead fuel pump is $500 to $1,000. The math overwhelmingly favors prevention. But more important than the money is the reliability. No random check engine lights. No getting stranded. Your engine just works. Which of these 6 strategies are you implementing first? Drop your car, mileage, and plans in the comments. I read every single one. And earlier in trick number 3, I told you that using full synthetic oil is critical to stop your PCV system from destroying your intake valves. But here is the terrifying truth. The full synthetic oil you're buying off the shelf right now might actually be a legal lie. Click the video on your screen to find out what you're actually pouring into your engine and why it might be destroying your car from the inside out. I'll see you there.